streaming live, Greg.
Oh, was I just talking about your engineer buddy?
Yeah, that's all right.
Well,
Hey, Akron, what's going on? Internet world. We're finally streaming. We've been having glitches here for the past hour.
a couple glitches.
A little bit. But, hey, what are we going to do about it? We're going to have some fun. So,
Adds to the authenticity, Mike. So it's all good.
You're right, it
This is a
does.
podcast in the making. This is podcast number 2.
2?
I think it's great that we're stepping off. Let's see here. We planned on going on about an hour and 14 minutes ago.
yeah, we're a little bit late.
We don't quit.
No.
And that's authentic, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, here we are.
Here we are. And I think a great place to start was. Now here, I see you got notes.
Yeah, I got some note here for us to be talking about today. Some things that have been occurring. Wow, you are way much more organized than I am.
Well,
It's
it's
amazing.
not about organized. I just want to point out I had notes too, and hopefully with the notes,
Yes.
we won't completely blow like we did last week. I'm hoping to
Yeah.
get a little bit more flow.
Well, yeah, we rambled our first show. We kind of went wherever the conversation took us, right? It wasn't
For 2 hours.
for 2 hours. That's the one thing we're changing this time is I think we're planning on doing just hour shows. 2 hours might be a little bit too long for us to generate content for this world. I don't know, but 1 hour seems like a good amount of time.
I think 1 hour is good, and it'll be half as painful. At the very least, it'll be half as
It
painful.
won't be half as painful. I don't know. I enjoy this. I can rant all day and sit here and talk and just talk and talk. Well, one thing is, internet world, you're in my work office, so I sit here 10 hours a day. I am at this desk in here working by myself, programming on this computer, so I don't talk to people.
I don't believe you.
I don't.
I see a Nerf hoop right back here.
Yes.
I believe. He throws basketballs at that hoop, and it's down because who knows?
Yeah.
Right?
But no, it's good. So we can sit here and we can talk and we can joke, and we can tell some stuff.
Which
so.
is one of the things we talked about at the end of the show. We said, let's try to change things so we're going back and forth. And just so everybody knows, Mike's done a great job of setting everything up. Hey, Disco Steve. Mike's been doing a great job of getting all this good stuff set up. There you go. Tonight was no different. Had everything all set up. We were in a different office. Had the seating arrangement, and then we had to go to B. And again, that's part of the authenticity. And I do have a little bit of an intro. At the end of the last segment, obviously we came up with notes, which really excites me. I can't wait to be into yours and see what's going on there. But I think it's important. I think that we're continuing to work on an intro. Let's get them ready to what we're going to talk about and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
We got to work on the conclusion, the meat. But and we're still working on the name of the podcast. So an intro we might want to start off with would be something crazy like this, like "Welcome to the Rubber City Podcast," a podcast dedicated to authenticity.
That's pretty good. Rubber City Podcast. I like that.
And it might be terrible. I don't know. But here's what I found out this week. So I watched a podcast with Tim Ferriss.
Mm-hmm.
And he interviewed Mike Rowe. Do you know who Mike Rowe is?
I heard the name. I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly who he is, but
You're going to know exactly who he is once
Okay.
I tell you. 'Cause he's a very, very well-known narrator, and he had a very popular show. It has a very interesting history. But Mike Rowe is the narrator of The Deadliest Catch
okay.
and is also the star of Dirty Jobs.
Okay.
All right, so really clever, and I would recommend that podcast to anybody. But it's interesting. So what he had talked about in Dirty Jobs, he said the key to Dirty Jobs, and they kind of let him be in charge of everything because he is a genius at what he does, especially in that particular show. So he had pointed out one of the secrets to making that show a success was its authenticity. And I thought, isn't that kind of a goosebump moment for me? Because I was like, isn't that what Mike and I are doing right now? Now, we might completely blow because we don't even know if we're made for this kind of broadcast or not.
Right.
Right?
Maybe
We're
not.
trying,
We're
right?
trying.
But we've got the authenticity. You can strip us of everything, but this
Yeah.
is as authentic as it gets.
It doesn't get any more authentic. I mean, we're on a shoestring budget here. I mean, everything that we have here, the equipment, our microphones, our cameras. I mean, this is not high-end studio quality. We're in up at Fox 8 or something with this type of equipment. We're doing this stuff low rent, and I like that.
I like it. And also, let's talk about the entertainers. Now, Mike has some to a lot of experience entertaining folks on a stage, actually playing guitar. And if you heard did we have the music playing when we started?
I don't know if anybody heard that from our attempts at trying to stream earlier. We didn't play anything this time just because we wanted to get up and going because we were so late. So
Well, you got to hear it because it's a badass riff
Yeah.
by Mike, and it's a song sung by, and I got to hear it all night long while we were trying to start this podcast. Unfortunately, it never started, but maybe next week.
Yeah, next
the
week.
audience,
Next week.
Disco Steve gets to hear it, right?
We'll get tighter and tighter. And my goal is, I imagine that these are not going to be the greatest podcasts here to begin with, but each week I'm hoping that we get better and better and better. And if we're still doing this from a year from now, we should be pretty awesome by that time. So we're trying different camera angles. You can see Greg and I are sitting here talking to each other face to face. More so, if you watch the first podcast, we're staring at the camera, trying to address the internet. But now here we are this way. So we'll keep trying things.
I'm sure the audience is going to really miss our warm stares into the screen, feeling completely uncomfortable. Right?
Well, that was like the newscaster, Tonight on the nightly news. Welcome. But today we'll do more of an interview style, two people
I dig it.
conversation. And hey, we're just going to go with it. So, like you came up with the Rubber City podcast. Didn't put any of the Rubber City in it, but that's pretty good. I like that. One of the thoughts I had was the Basement podcast, because originally we were in the basement. Now we're in my office, so, as long as we have a good internet connection, we can stream from anywhere. We could be at a coffee shop and stream with what we have here. So, one of the things that someone had suggested, as I was asking people, their thoughts, what they thought, someone said, well, if you keep it less in the title, less Akron, that doesn't pigeonhole you to only have to talk about Akron. We can talk about other topics outside of Akron or beyond, but that was their viewpoint.
Right.
So
tell me your thoughts on that.
Even if we did call it Akron Podcast, Rubber City Podcast, even though we are here in Akron and we plan on talking a lot about Akron, it still doesn't hold us to toe. But their thought was that possibly being here on YouTube, where the entire world can be watching us here, potentially more people could get involved with the podcast and it could grow at a greater rate than if we pigeonholed ourselves to Akron. It's a great starting point. The title, the show, we can keep changing formats. We have our platform, AkronScene.com, that we could put whatever name of a show, whatever format of a show that we want to have there. So, this is a living, breathing thing,
Sure.
We don't have bosses telling us how to do our show. We don't have
but
directors. Input's always great.
Awesome. And anybody that steps up and says, hey, this is why your podcast blows, this is what you want to do, even if it's stated that way, right? We're listening.
Absolutely.
And I like what your friend had to say, but I agree with you. We can go in, we can call it the Akron Podcast, and we can talk about California. You and I aren't going to feel restrained in that way.
No.
And I think part of, at least from my point of view, and tell me if you agree with this, if this podcast gets, 2, 4, 6, however many people listening to us,
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be drawn back to Akron.
Yep.
Or if we get 1 million people, I want it to be drawn back to Akron. Similar to when you think of the Black Keys, you think Akron. When you think of LeBron James, you think Akron. We got a lot of cool things going on, and it doesn't mean we can't talk about other things outside.
That's right. Area. That's right. So we can talk about everything, anything. We're not. The only limits will be us limiting ourselves.
True.
So we can do whatever we want to do. So.
Did you ask anybody about the name of the podcast? Because I did not. I did not drill that as much as I.
Well, I told them, we were on the Akron Podcast, the Mike and Gray Show, any thought or anything, and the only thing I said that they were giving us was that, don't call it something that pigeonholes you into something. But again, it's not an issue. So the name of the show, is ours to name. This is our baby, so we get to name it. So whatever. I'm big on the Rubber City. That's pretty cool. I'm big on blimps. A lot of what we do musically revolves around blimps. There's a blimp in almost every Sky Chief flyer, photograph that we do. So a blimp is. I flew the blimp. Internet world. Did you ever fly the blimp? I flew the blimp.
This is news to me. I never knew that Mike flew.
Yeah, I didn't fly in the blimp.
You flew.
I drove the blimp.
The blimp?
Yes.
The Goodyear blimp.
The Goodyear blimp. Yeah.
You want an old one?
Huh? It was an older one. I think there's several blimps.
Are you the one that flew it into 224 near Mogador?
No.
Into the ground.
Well,
that's you.
No. Well, that's where the blimp hangs. It's its hangar. They might have overshot or undershot the.
No. They weren't even close to the hangar.
Oh.
They landed said blimp near 224, and I believe it was either 585 or 43.
Oh.
It was a disaster of sorts.
Wow.
Yeah, it wrecked.
Well,
So
that was not me.
I
I definitely have remembered. It was pretty interesting being. It was a very cool experience. So.
How'd you get to go riding the blimp?
Well, in the past, I was part of a magazine here in Akron called Review Magazine. Some people may or may not remember that, but it was out for quite a while. And from that, one of our other owners had contacts somehow through his connections that ended up getting us a ride on the blimp.
That's one heck of a connection.
It was a pretty good connection.
Not everybody gets to ride the blimp.
No, it's very hard to ride the blimp, let alone.
It's hard to get a seat on the blimp.
Yeah, it's that's what I heard. I mean,
let alone what?
Let alone being able to drive the blimp.
Why did somebody trust you to drive the blimp?
Well, I was sitting in the co-pilot seat, and then the pilot stood up and goes, "Your turn," and I'm like, "What? You're crazy. You're not going to let me, surely not me, drive the blimp." And he's like, "Yeah, here, go ahead." And I sat down in the chair, and it's very easy controls. There's like a wheelchair wheel that you have here, and you push it forward, and the blimp dives, and you pull it backwards, the blimp comes up, and then you have two pedals that you press. And as you press one, you turn to the left, and press the other one, you go right. So, I mean, it's like, and I'm like, "Can you flip this thing over?" And he's like, "Push the wheel forward." And the next thing you know, the blimp's doing this, woo, and I'm pointing at the ground, and
Nice.
it was interesting, so it was kind of fun to do that, and, get that experience. It's something I will take, with me forever. And if anyone's watching out there and I wasn't supposed to be doing that, then this is just a complete lie. That never happened. But if no one is watching of importance, then I did actually try that. So.
That's cool.
But yeah, it was a cool thing. So, with that being said, blimps, I love blimps. So
We'd be like Led Zeppelin.
one of my favorite bands of all time.
You know why they named it Led Zeppelin?
Because someone said they were going to go down like a Led Zeppelin and not be successful. But they proved them wrong, huh?
Give us a name. Throw a blimp in it. The Blimp Podcast.
Blimpcast. Actually, I have a cousin. She's on some local radio here, and she told me that podcasts are like one of the most hot topic items, and that podcasts are becoming very extremely popular. So,
So what are you saying? You want to call it a podcast?
I guess I was calling it a show in my mind because I play in a band, and I go out and I play shows, not concerts, because concerts are held at the Coliseum or up at the
Some
the
smart
Cavs
guy
Stadium.
was trying to tell you that last week.
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
you want to name names right now.
Well, that was probably you.
But you know what? Mike's a stand-up guy because we did have this conversation
We
last
did.
week. And the thing is I'm not surprised to hear that. Podcasts are really, really cool. And I didn't tell you this yet, but I'm going to run a group.
No, I know.
It's the CRTR. It's the Crooked River Trail Runners. And we run the trails, all trails. And it's just a great group of people, anywhere between 70 to 120 people.
Wow.
On any given Thursday, will show up. It's just a great group of people. But one of the girls in the group, I'm going to guess she's about 26, 28, somewhere in there, has started a running podcast. And it's a trendy thing. So the younger folks are correlating the computer. This isn't a professional broadcast. This is us authentic. Let's just go ahead. We're going to talk about things that people want to talk about, relate things that people are interested in. And so good. So then we know at least whatever we're going to do, be a Blimpcast, which I do like. Blimpcast, this cast, the cast, it's going to be a caster podcast.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Okay.
Got it.
Hey, I'm cool with whatever. This is just fun. I'm having fun doing this.
Right.
So whatever title we want to put on it, it's good to me. So
Well, trendy is important.
yeah, we can call it the Trendy Podcast.
Well, you know what I'm saying. I mean,
The Trendy Akron Podcast.
the podcast part. In other
Yeah.
words, if you throw something else on there, unfortunately, I'm not saying I agree with it, but it's something that, okay, I relate to a podcast as to something like this, as compared to, what kind, if they see another term afterwards, they might think of it as something that we are familiar with.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I'm close to the industry, so the term podcast to me doesn't hold the same weight as it does to the world. I guess I need to accept that the rest of the world refers to it as that type of a term, but when we're very close to something, I came up before the internet was around. I was into the computer and everything before the internet was even around.
Did you have Prodigy?
No, I was not a Prodigy user. I was an AOL user at the time, and but prior to even any of those, I used to get on what were called BBSs, bulletin board systems, and you would dial up into these things, and they only had one or two modems. You had to actually use your telephone line, and I would get in trouble because I would take up the telephone line all night long, hooked up to these.
I remember that.
To these
Texas
BBSs.
Instrument computer?
I had a Commodore 64, and I had the very first modem that ever existed. It was 150 baud. You had to take your phone, dial a phone number, and when it went boop, and then you had to put it down onto the little suction cup thing and hit the little switch, and you hit the keyboard, tap, 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 and then boop, 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 up on the screen would come the letters, and you'd have to watch each letter pop across the screen, one letter at a time, and it'd spell out, welcome to the BBS. I was such a geek at the time, so I'm like 13 years old at this point, and I'm running my own BBS. So that was another reason why the phone line was taken up all night long, because at 9 o'clock at night, on would come Riot BBS. I was big into that world at the time, so
Right. I never understood any of that was going on. A buddy of mine, Tom, was into that same thing, and I was like bored to tears. He loved it.
Yeah.
He would set it up, and him and my buddy Dan would jump on there, and I don't even know what they were doing, but whenever I looked at that screen, I said, man, that's boring stuff. I couldn't get into it. And
it's not for everybody.
And but I did see but there was a lot of benefit, and there was a lot to be attracted to that, because when Prodigy came out, I did buy Prodigy, but it was terrible. There was a professor at Akron University that talked about the World Wide Web before it came out, and he used the example of, if you're into tapeworms, you could type the word tapeworm into the computer, and you will get more information about a tapeworm and the different kinds of tapeworms. And he described it to a T, and it blew me away. And that would have been in 1993, maybe 1994.
Yeah. At that exact time, there was something that was the predecessor to the web, World Wide Web, and it was still based loosely on the same technology. It was called Gopher, and you would be able to go in, and it was just really text, though. Maybe a simple graphic here or there, but it wasn't like web, and you would ask Gopher all this information.
He wasn't using it yet.
Oh, he didn't use it yet.
He was one of these guys. His name was Mr. Noden.
Well, actually, he did use it. That email has been at Akron U, where I went as well. We all had email, and so he was using email at the time. So that is actually a piece. That's a piece of the. Well, any professor at Akron U would have had an email account, so they would have been participating on the internet. We didn't call it that yet.
Right.
Here, for example, here's a cast decide that term got associated on when the internet had arrived the internet. We would draw a picture of a cloud up onto the screen, and here's this cloud, and this cloud is the internet that we connect to. But now all of a sudden, this term recently, and marketers made this a big thing. Everyone's like, cloud. Well, it's just a term forever.
Yes.
But as if it's something, the term that existed.
Well,
but
here's I think of the cloud, and you're looking at a layman in the room, so I can tell you how you're saying. So you're saying we made a cloud, and all this computer to another one, one from this computer to. So when what you're saying, the cloud now, it has to do with
a lot of the cloud,
and a little bit from
terms, and you know, it applied, that it's something different. And next process, cloud some place to main corporation, allow private all the companies access the concepts. Parts of the internet have been being developed. So California, New York, you know, University, the IT department work with, you know, terminals and brains, you know, all kinds of crazy, just world as more users of it. Was so as using just like because what we're doing is show words. There's no real television being broadcasted and be so so term that people doing and really that probably came from those terms really uh, with the because it a new term of
So I don't know. Right.
yeah.
There's always like people about blog. I really know what it
Mhm.
means. And it's like that's a part of the podcast. This podcast of
Segment.
only viewers
Watch is you the time television you watch and he believes all
everything knows I have to come up with it. We're going to do a 10-minute podcast. It's so a lot of